The Wild West is a setting ripe for games despite being so underused. There are tons of bandits to shoot, horse chases, banks, and stagecoaches to rob. There are countless movies set there, but not so many games. Red Dead Redemption was a great success for Rockstar, but the most recent Call of Juarez, Gunslinger, has garnered great reviews and is generally liked by most. Much like the dev who created it, the Call of Juarez series has a bit of a checkered past. The previous titles in this series has mixed reviews, and the last one nearly killed the franchise by changing the setting to modern LA instead of the Wild West in the 19th century like this one. It seems to have shaken the confidence of Ubisoft, its publisher, in Techland, the developer, and the series as a whole, since Gunslinger wasn't a full-price title to begin with and was priced at a mere $15 from the start. It's got frantic arcade shooting that can keep you satiated for a couple of hours, as well as a unique dueling mechanic to mix things up. What really differentiates it from the rest of the countless first-person shooters out there is its narration. Instead of simply going through the missions in real time, the story is retold around a table in a saloon sometime after the events actually happened. The main character is an old bounty hunter called Silas Greaves, willing to tell his adventures to anyone willing to listen and fill his glass of liquor. Since it's a retelling and the character isn't past embellishing his own story, the events change constantly while you are playing them. In some cases, enemies change because the protagonist expressed himself poorly and the audience thought something else was going on. It sometimes rewinds the action to an earlier moment because he forgot to introduce something, or he points out that he had multiple options and shows what would have happened had he made the wrong one before showing what really happened. At one point, the standoff at a bank robbery is told in 3 different ways based on how 2 people listening tell how they heard the events took place and how the bounty hunter claims it really happened. The game plays with the concept for laughs. At one point, the main character starts making things up to wake someone who fell asleep and is snoring loudly, or later on, the game loops while the bounty hunter goes to pee after drinking so much, and the people still at the table argue over whether or not his stories are true. It's something shared with the player. You can never be sure if things really happened as they are told. The inclusion of an untrustworthy narrator allows the game to get away with a lot more than the heavily criticized campaigns of first-person shooters that come out these days. Quite a few maps are reused, but since it's presented as different perspective of the same events, it almost gets away with it, and instead of having NPCs open doors for you, or any other overused tropes to only open the next path once certain plot points are reached, the narrator just suddenly remembers the way he left, and the new path just falls from the sky. The constant changes made to the gameplay, mostly without interrupting the gameplay, kept me interested throughout, wondering what will be the next wrench they'll throw into the gears. The story is rather simple. A group of bandits hung the protagonist and his 2 older brothers, and only he survived because the branch broke before he died. Thus begins his quest for revenge that will get him to fight against all of the most famous outlaws of the Wild West. It's very similar to the way Assassin's Creed deals with the famous individuals of the time period it's set in, but it doesn't break immersion nearly as much since it's made clear right from the start that the main character might be making things up for free refills, so it makes sense that he would add all the famous outlaws within the story to get more people interested. The ending was unexpected and left me wondering if there are clues to it on certain levels that were played earlier. But it was a bit disappointing that you suddenly had to make a choice that would give you one of 2 endings, when it could have been included within the gameplay decisions without any issues due to how malleable the story was. Gunslinger features highly lethal gameplay where you'll be facing a lot of enemies at the same time that can be dispatched with a single bullet or 2. Only the toughest enemies or bosses can survive a headshot. Your own character doesn't last much longer than that either, with 4 shots or so being able to kill you. You'll have regenerating health on your side though, and also last breath, which is a quick time event triggered when a bullet would otherwise finish you off. The shot is fired in slow motion. You can either dodge left or right. Choosing the right one will keep you alive and give you back some of your health. Once used, there's a cooldown of around 30 seconds until it can be used again. It's a great addition to the game. It means that despite how much damage you take, you always have a fairly safe way to get out of danger, although it won't save you from explosives. It promotes an aggressive style of play and allows you to run right into danger without having to hide behind cover every 5 seconds. If you happen to die though, the checkpoints are numerous and you won't lose a lot of progress. There are a couple of other quick time events. If bandits ambush you, you will get a prompt of one of the 4 directions of a D-pad or WASD. Each one successfully done will kill one of them outright before they can fire. These types of quick-time events are often chained in groups of 3 to 6. Failing to do them will put you back in the gameplay, with any remaining bandits shooting at you and occasionally consume your last breath, so you won't die from failing them. Finally, there's bullet time, which works just like in the dozen upon dozens of games it can be found in. It's pretty clear that the emphasis was put on running and gunning, using bullet time to even the odds and last breath to give you a chance to avoid death if you went too far. Only thing I hated was how blurry the screen gets whenever you are hit, making it very hard to aim long distance if you prefer to play that way, or if you always aim for headshots like I often do in single player and PvE shooters. Occasionally, there are some turret sections which are even easier than in most shooters. You'll get to use one of the old Gatling guns found in those days. In a lot of games, turret sections become a pain at higher difficulties because you can't get behind cover to get your health back, but in this one, you were left with plenty of time before they start firing to dispatch them, before they become an issue in the first place, so it's not as bad. All of the weapons are hit-scan, which I frankly consider outdated at this point, but excusable in this case, because it was never meant to be a full-price title. There are no alternatives to iron sights, and little to no zoom when aiming down sight, so it makes it harder to be accurate at long range, but by no means impossible. While most things are indestructible, a lot of light cover and small objects can eventually be destroyed. Hiding behind a set of boxes will only get you so far, and it's possible to shoot through light surfaces for less damage. To my surprise, when it happened, it's even possible to ricochet bullets. Despite the missions being mostly linear corridors, some places open up a bit, but there's nothing to be found in them. You won't find hidden caches of weapons or even collectibles that are instead generally found much closer to the path you have to go through to progress in the story. In some cases, the background appears to be open but is gated, and you'll be told that you are wandering out of the missions area. The game hides its spawn points pretty well, although I've noticed a couple of bandits popping right in front of my face on 2 different occasions. I've noticed a few bugs, but nothing that hindered my playthrough, mostly just a couple of corpses floating in the air. Where Call of Juarez really falls flat on its face for me is with the boss design. The stylized intro when you first engage them is great, but the actual fights are anything but. They quickly become massive bullet sponge that are incredibly bland. There actually are 2 bosses in the game that only slowly walk towards you and fire their shotgun. Nothing more than that. They are boring, and it's a completely departure from the lethal gameplay found everywhere else in the game, where a well-placed bullet is enough to deal with 90% of enemies. So all you have to do is unload entire magazines on their face until they get close, and then move to another set of cover and repeat until they are dead. It really hurt my immersion that a guy could take 40 bullets to the head because he happened to have his name written at the top of the screen. Some are just as boring and gimmicky, but at least die quickly. There are 3 bosses in the game that are dealt exactly the same way. You have to throw dynamite to kill them in their entrenched position, from which they usually fire a Gatling gun or cannot be damaged directly for some other reason. There's an infinite spawn of dynamite nearby, so you just run to and fro, chugging all you can carry. Some henchmen show up, you kill them. All you have to do is repeat the process 2 or 3 times, and it's over in less than a minute. Boss battles are the biggest flaw in the game, by far, in my opinion. Thankfully, not all named bandits are dealt with boss fights. Some are dueled instead for their final showdown. During them, you have to keep your cursor on them as much as you can to increase your accuracy with your gun. Keep your hands close to your holster so you can react as quickly as possible, and keep an eye on the one you are facing since you want to pull your gun right after he does, so it's considered an honorable duel, basically differentiating between killing them in self-defense instead of murdering them. I have to admit it's hard to take the moral justification for it seriously, when just in that level I probably killed over 50 men already. The game encourages you to go for honorable duels with higher scores, but if you don't care about that, you are free to fight dishonorably as often as you want. Going for your gun first will only give you an extra fraction of a second over your opponent, which can definitely be enough to make a difference, but by no means guarantees victory. Once your gun is completely out of its holster, you can try to evade bullets by moving your torso from one side to the other, and of course shoot yourself. As long as you hit your opponent but aren't hit yourself, you win the duel. As you go through the campaign, a bit of variety is added to the duels. Sometimes you'll have to duel 2 enemies at the same time, and there's even a Mexican standoff where the 3 involved all want to kill each other. It is heavily scripted though. Those you fight will always do the same thing every time, which can be helpful if you fail multiple times, but also feels a bit lazy. Some of the later duels are a bit painful to go through at the harder difficulties. You have very little time to pull your gun and shoot, especially since they decided to make it so you cannot move your body until you are done pulling out the gun completely, so dodging probably won't save you most of the time, even though there's no reason you shouldn't be able to. I have to admit it became a bit frustrating for me. I loved the idea of the dual mechanic, but I can't say I liked how it was executed in the game, since the result is often decided before the gun is even pulled out. As far as enemy variety goes, it's pretty low. There are bandits and natives to shoot, but the difference is mostly cosmetic. It doesn't affect gameplay, although there technically are more natives who use melee weapons than whites. On rare occasions, you'll find enemies moving around with a door as cover, and you'll either have to shoot them in the head through a small opening, or wait till they stop and try to shoot you, exposing themselves in the process. For some reason, shotgun users are considered a different type of enemy, and they have slightly higher HP. A headshot that would kill others will leave them with under 5% health left on hard. There's also an armored variant further down in the campaign, but they are no more resistant to headshots than the last. You can easily get in bullet time, get 2 headshots before they can even fire once, so they really aren't that much harder than the plethora of regular henchmen. Due to the setting, the weapons are pretty limited in Gunslinger. There are 3 types of revolver, one on each end of the spectrum between accuracy and firing speed, and the third one being, of course, right in the middle. You can acquire the ability to carry 2 of them at the same time for faster firing and damage at the cost of accuracy. Aside from revolvers, there are double-barrel shotgun, a repeating rifle, and dynamite that is the replacement for grenade in the game. Dynamite thrown by enemies can be blown up in the air too. There are no automatic weapons in the game, and most take quite a bit of time between each shot, so you have to make sure every one of them count when the bandits are closing in on you. Missing means you'll probably get hit once or twice, and with the low health pool, that can be enough for you to have to hide behind cover for your health to regenerate. Reloading is done 1 bullet at a time for nearly all weapons, so reloading takes time, but you can cancel the reload at any time, so you always have the means to defend yourself if an enemy pops up unexpectedly. The score you get isn't just for show, it also defines how much XP you get within the leveling system. For example, killing someone with a headshot will get you twice as much experience as in the chest. Long shots, killing when they're nearly dead yourself, by explosives, and more all give you extra XP. Killing your enemies in quick succession will give you a score multiplier that massively increases the experience you get. It actually makes turret sections much more fun than they have a right to be, because you get huge amounts of XP after every kill, since you'll easily achieve combos of 30 or above during them. If you run out of bandits or natives to shoot, you can shoot bottles, lanterns, explosive barrels to keep your combo going for a bit longer. The whole thing further cements the idea that you are meant to be running and gunning, being very aggressive rather than stopping and popping whenever you can. There are 3 separate skill trees you can spend your skill points on: Trapper, Ranger, and Gunslinger. Each focus on a certain distance of engagement and the weapons related to them. A lot of them are passive bonuses like more bullet time, faster reloads, and more carry capacity, but some change the gameplay a bit. There's one that slows time a bit whenever you aim down sight, another that makes you zoom a bit if you keep your reticule on the same spot for a few seconds, and also one that allows you to wield revolvers akimbo. Once you've spent enough points on a particular tree, one of the guns related to the skill tree will be improved. The changes are both statistical and cosmetic. Once you are done with the campaign, which is about 4 hours on hard, you unlock New Game Plus, which carries over your XP and skills from the previous playthrough, and also the True West difficulty, when you have even less health, tougher enemies, and all the HUD is gone. I have to admit, it would have been great to have a mode with all the HUD removed from the start, but it's hardly worth a second playthrough. Aside from that, there's an arcade mode where you shoot your way through the same maps found in the campaign, trying to get the highest possible score to get 3 stars. You have to choose between 3 loadouts that fit the skill trees found within the story. You progressively unlock the skill of each tree for that loadout and that loadout alone as you get XP. It reminded me a bit of the Arkham game's challenge modes, where a great combo could make the difference between 1 star and 3. If dueling was your thing, there's also a mode for it where you'll face 15 opponents that get progressively harder. You must kill them all honorably, and you only get 5 lives to go through them all. All in all, I enjoyed the game, but I can't see myself coming back to it. What made it rise above the rest for me was the narration. The gameplay is good, but the lack of variety of guns, enemies, and the bad boss design would probably get on my nerves once the campaign has lost its luster. It's great to experience once and move on, especially at its low price. Thanks for watching the review. If you like what you saw, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm Critic/Gamer, hoping to see you next time.